Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to PMI Live. It is 3 p.m. in the UK. It is, of course, the last Friday of the month. Somehow it's the 24th of November, which means, of course, it's time for PMI Live. And this afternoon, I am joined by my good friend and colleague, Sean Buckland, who's going to lead a session called When Projects Don't Go Right. So before I ask Sean to introduce himself and also the topic and the content we're going to go through just a few of the usual things. I was going to welcome everyone that's come and joining us on the live streams, but Microsoft have let us down this afternoon. So if you do have any colleagues that want to join us on the session, they need to register, which they can still do now via our website, pmi.co.uk. So, Sean, would you like to first of all, introduce yourself, because it's been a while since we've seen you. I'd also love to hear what you've been up to since we last saw you on PMI Live.
Fantastic. Thanks very much, Rich. So yes, I'm Sean Buckland. I'm one of the consultants working within PMI. I was originally trained by PMI in Greenbelt back in 2005, and it's been an amazing journey ever since. But prior to the PMI experience, I worked as an organizational psychologist and as a large-scale training designer and training manager and so forth. So very much interested in the people side of change, and then adding in the PMI piece, the green belt, followed by black belt, and now working with PMI directly. It's been an incredible journey putting the science behind the change in real practical ways. So yes, and it's fantastic stuff to be part of the PMI team.
So where have you been, Sean, since we last saw you on PMI Live?
Well, yes, it's been for me personally, COVID is fully in the past. It's back onto lots of aeroplanes, I'm afraid. That was one of the good things. I enjoyed working from home and having to work from home a lot. But yes, no, back out on the aeroplanes. So I've been working pretty much a lot of different continents over the last few months, and with two amazing clients, and I think I'll just quick shout out to both of them, because one of the clients has been working phenomenally over the past 3 years to really build its improvement capability right across the organization. And one of the things they've done absolutely right, and it's a real pleasure to see, is they're not just relying on us to train the green belt skills, the black belt skills, and so on. They're also making sure that the people who've been trained are getting phenomenal support from within inside the company. And that means we're getting some of the best results we've ever seen from Greenbelt training in terms of people getting fully certified and delivering real value to the company. So that's just great. And the other one is more in my space of redesigning processes, but specifically management processes. Just getting the world the whole business to tie together, to pull in the same direction. And it's not an easy project, as you might imagine, but using business process management as an effective way to get people to organize and collaborate and unite together. So yeah, it's been a lot of fun. Very, very busy, but very much fun.
Fantastic. Thanks, Sean. So for us, this topic, the title, I should say, is fairly unusual. As regular viewers and joiners of PMI Live will know, we usually go for the positive in our titles. So today we've gone for a negative: when projects don't go right. So tell us a bit about that, Sean. Why that topic? Why the topic? Why that title? And what are we going to cover today?
Okay, fantastic. So yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because what we, as I will cover as part of the seminar today, is it's very, very important to keep focused on the positive, but we also mustn't hide from the negative. The negative is there, and if we're not ready for it, if we're not ready to work with it and turn it into value, then it can really trip us up. And maybe we can fall over when we didn't even need to fall over. So I selected this project, this title for this webinar, because I think it's something that maybe we're a little bit frightened to talk about. Maybe it's something there's a little bit of shame. Maybe people fear that they're not good enough or something like that. So really, I wanted to be honest, that even when we've got years and years of experience behind us, things don't always go right. it, you just tend to end up with tougher problems to solve, I think, sometimes. So if I could just go through, if I just start my screen share, if that's all right, on the
While you're doing
slides.
that, Sean, I'll just
Yeah.
I'll just say a few things about
Yeah,
titles and
please.
topics. So we are putting together the 2024 schedule for PMI Live at the moment, ready to go for the new year. All of these subjects come from you, our customers and our clients, and visitors can join us to our website and PMI Live. We're looking for suggestions. We will send anyone that joins a Voice of the Customer survey at the end of the session, which will have a section on there for suggestion of topics. So if there's a burning issue that you'd like us to cover, you'd like us to challenge us with for 2024, we're up for it. So please let us know. Similarly, just on the subject of letting us know things, we use the chat and the Q&A functionality throughout the webinars. Chat is for general observations, comments and feedback, reflections, your insights. As Sean is talking, please let us know and I'll put those to Sean in an appropriate moment. The Q&A function is if you've got a specific question. So chat for comments and observations, Q&A for questions, and I shall triage those as we go through.
Thank you very much, Rich. And I really do look forward to people's reactions to this, because I'm going to be quite honest here. It's one of the tougher webinars to pull together. And initially I thought, is this going to turn into a basic 101 risk management presentation? And that didn't feel like it might be a useful thing, let us know. But it felt that many people have already got a lot of experience of that kind of thing. Not going to try and treat project management 101. Maybe we could do something around specific stakeholders, complexities working with stakeholders. But eventually I settled on this topic here, about ourselves. How we handle the setbacks, how we personally interact with ourselves and our team members when things aren't going right. So we've got a bit of context to get things started, hamburgers and human factors. And then you can see I'm using a very simplified therapy model here. We need to first of all acknowledge there will be problems. And then we need to accept the fact that we are in fact pre-programmed to create many of those problems. They're built within the way we are as human beings. And then on to the moving on, how we adapt, specifically around how we develop our cognitive flexibility, the ability for ourselves and our minds and our thoughts and our feelings about things to be able to be flexible to respond. So I really do hope you'll find this an interesting topic for today. Sorry, Rich, were you coming in there?
No, I was just going to say, and thank you very much, Sean, for that agenda, because we like a challenge on a Friday afternoon, and by the look of things, you're going to give us that.
I hope so. I hope so. So we'll start with what will be for some of you familiar ground, and that is the GIB model or the hamburger model. But not everybody necessarily has seen this before, so I'll quickly summarize it. So some work done by Jack Gibb quite some time ago now, but has been done, but similar pieces of work are ongoing at all times. By all means, do your own research around this. But Jack Gibb was particularly interested in, once projects had failed, in the eyes of the people who should say whether the project was successful or not, what was it that led to the success or the lack of success in this case? Was it the tasks, the things that we were trying to do with the project? Was it how we went about it, the task processes? Or was it the people factors, the social, the emotional, the political realities that were surrounding the project? And over a period of time, what he discovered was of the main reasons for projects failing were quite rare. Only about 5% of failures came down to not just tasks, but tasks and task processes. In other words, we usually set out to do the right projects, and we usually set out to do them in the right way. What that leaves then is about 95% of project failure comes down to how people interacted with each other, how people felt, how the power dynamics and the political realities within the organization played out. And this is very interesting, because I'd like to just make sure that as we go through this presentation today, I want you to think about it as it's projects that fail is the end of a journey of attempting to succeed. So yeah, it's
Say that again, Sean.
The projects that fail are the end of a journey where everybody was trying to succeed.
Gotcha. Right.
Yeah.
I heard something different. That's great. That now
Right.
makes sense.
Okay. Well, thank you for checking. Yeah. So we don't set out to fail. Why would we? We really do. And you'll see this again later on. We're good people trying to do a good job. So we really need to be aware of the fact that it's the social, the emotional, the political realities that can trip us up. And what I want to do is test this bit of research with you right here and right now. I want you to have a quick think about of all the work you've ever done in terms of improvement projects, but thinking about when your projects are still in the green. I'm not talking about when they've gone into some kind of exception and we've got people running around trying to sort stuff. I'm talking about just when your project is in its daily business as usual, we're reporting green to the steering co. What percentage of your actual time is being spent dealing with social issues, emotional issues, or political issues in the project, as opposed to building the fancy new process or whatever that project is setting out to do? Be really interesting. We've sort of summarized it into 5 broad categories. It'd be fascinating to get people's view on where they think they spend their time.
Great. Neil, if you could put that on screen now, that'd be great, so people can start responding. Excellent. I can see that's popped up. Hopefully for everyone can see that now. So Sean, with this question, what's on your mind? What are you trying to get a sense of?
Well, first of all, I'm making an assumption that Jack Gibbs' research is still true. And secondly, I want people to get into the mindset of how much of our project cost, mostly in the form of time cost, is actually invested in this aspect of project work.
Excellent. So I can see people are being able to respond, see results starting to come in, and there may be some theory challenging going on here, Sean.
Right.
Okay, we'll give you a couple more minutes just to respond on that. I can see there's a number of people haven't yet had a chance. So yeah, just select your answer. If you're not sure, pop us a note if you're not sure about the question, just pop us a note in the chat and we will endeavour to clarify. Okay, a bit more balance coming in. Don't understand the question, says one person, Sean, so you can just run that through us again.
I'll try and rephrase it. How much of your time, so you're working on a project, trying to do some change, what percentage of your actual minutes are spent moving things forward, and what percentage is in some way working with the psychological factors? Maybe an unhappy team member, maybe people are not clear about something, maybe you're trying to get approval for something that you thought would be easy. Anything at all that's slowing you down from just getting the job done. What percentage of your project time is spent in that space?
Okay, let's give it a couple more seconds on that one, and then we'll have a look at the results. Okay, so anyone that's using the polls, you should be able to see in the chat the results are being shared live. So not everyone has responded, so you can still respond if you want to. But what we've got here, Sean, is a near even split between 41 to 60 and 61 to 80. That balance earlier on, and I was commenting on data as it was coming in, very poor practice. Apologies, folks. Was quite the balance was quite different. It's now shifted to I think where you'd expect it to be. Is that right?
Yeah, and absolutely. So as you say, there's the bulk of somewhere between 40 and 80% of time is being spent, and we've even, I see, you can see that 3% is 3% have responded in the top category as well. And I think one of the things that's really interesting over recent years has been the growth of the use of agile project management methodologies. And I think one of the things that I find fascinating about them is they recognize this social political aspect and build it in. The daily stand-ups, for example, that's a really good example of how we're trying to turn positive this socio-emotional and political piece. The retrospectives, which I'll come back to later. So there's all this kind of stuff we're now beginning to recognize and build it in. It's not just keep going busily and then fall over and so on. The agile methodologies are increasingly valuable in terms of trying to manage this problem. But nevertheless, we're still seeing The bulk of time, if we turn that into a percentage of time spent, we're still seeing something around about that 50 to 60% of time is being invested, not in moving the project forward, but keeping the project alive.
Okay,
an
so I'm
interesting ratio,
taking
isn't it?
two things away there then, Sean. So we've got people setting out to for projects to succeed and trying to do a good job, and people involved in projects spending a lot of time on the so-called soft stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And that's why when we're putting this together, I initially started with the standard, the project triangle, the CTQ, the cost time quality challenge. But I realized and how we manage risk, and that's still obviously absolutely critical. But that's almost like going back to working to specifications in engineering. But we're now much more advanced than that. We understand that on target with minimum variation is a much lower level of risk and much lower level of wastage over the long term. So instead of the green-red status, I'd like to apply that Taguchi loss function thinking to our ability to be on target with minimum variation. Make sure as much of our time as possible is spent in people in productive mode rather than maintenance or recovery mode. And that's where I'm thinking here. It's a human factor thing. Have we designed ourselves and our ways of working to keep ourselves able to keep going for the lowest possible energy levels? And when we do need the higher levels of energy, have we got that mental fitness to keep going? And those two things are the topic of today. So hopefully people will find this of interest. Obviously, we look forward to your feedback and comments. Number one, acknowledge the problem. You are creating change in the work that you do. Assuming you're involved in improvement activity of any kind, you are looking to create change. If you're looking to create change, there will be problems. it's a straightforward fact. There is nothing, I think I said in the advertising material, I'd never been involved in a project that didn't have problems. And in fact, one extreme case was a 6-month-long project where in the first 5 months, I was able to do one productive workshop, which lasted 1 day. So I had 1 day of productive work in 5 months. And yet it was still one of the most successful projects I've ever run. So
okay,
there we go. Yeah, and we finished on time, on budget. So this is our number one challenge. It's a very interesting problem. Some of you are probably already familiar with the concept of cognitive biases and so forth. This is one of them. This is one of the key pre-programmed issues in our brains, optimism bias. Before we even start the project, our optimism bias will make us inclined to over-anticipate successful outcomes. Hey, we should be able to get 40% of the waste out in one small greenbelt project in the next 3 weeks. Yeah, because we're excited. We can see all of the benefits and the opportunities, and we really want them. That creates that over-anticipation. In the meantime, we don't know yet what we don't know. So we tend to under-anticipate the challenges or the setbacks. So we get hit from two sides with optimism bias.
Sorry to interrupt you, Flo. I can add to this with a live example from this morning. A client with a substantial problem that's been around for years. Can we solve it in 5 days?
And the optimism bias, did it set in, Rich? And you said absolutely yes.
Certainly not.
But it's always tempting, though, isn't it? It's the first thing we ask ourselves: could we?
Well, indeed, but that's where it had come from the client. That they were certainly being subject to the to optimism bias, not for any bad reason. These are experienced people with a great track record. They've kind of thought about it and thought, oh yeah, we can fix that in kind of 5 days.
Nice.
Okay.
Yes, but thank you for that. It's an absolutely spot on example. And I think just building on what you're just saying there, Rich, there's something really key there. These are intelligent, experienced people. We don't grow out of this. It's hardwired in.
Yep.
Yeah. And unfortunately, it's even worse than you think. So there's some amazing work by Bent Floyberg and Dan Gardner, and there's a book literally just published around it. They've got a database of over 16,000 mega projects, super sized projects. And on the left, for contrast effect, there's 100% of them. That's the 16,000 projects. Look at that, less than half coming on budget, less than 10% on budget and on time, and less than 0.5% on time, on budget, and deliver the benefits expected. Which in practice means 80 out of 16,000 projects managed to avoid the optimism bias. Yeah, it puts it in perspective, doesn't it? It's quite an interesting thing. And most of these mega projects are often very, they've got a lot of people, designers, experience, lots of data sets. How long does it take to lay the concrete? All that kind of stuff. But for us, in the world of improvement, we don't even know what change we're looking to make when we set out. Every one of our projects is a voyage of discovery. We are going into uncharted territories. Exactly to your example just now there, Rich. These are problems that have been around for years. It's unlikely they've only just thought, oh, you know what, now's the time to fix that problem. I bet they've tried a few times before.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So they've found ways that don't work, but we don't yet know what will work. So when we're doing our projects, we need to make sure we're being pulled by the goal of getting closer to perfect. That's the only thing we know. Yeah, Columbus didn't set off to discover the Americas. He was just trying to find a better trade route across to the Asia area. He just found something different along the way. So, yeah. How will we get there? That's a matter of discovery.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to spend quite a bit of time today, hopefully really taking people's understanding of Plan, Do, Study, Act, or what some people call Plan, Do, Check, Act. If you still call it PDCA, that's absolutely fine, but Deming himself changed it to PDSA later. So there's an excellent webinar from Des Kelly on this, should you wish to try and track out why we call it PDSA, not PDCA. But anyway, we're going to talk about using PDSA, Plan, Do, Study, Act. And if you acknowledge the need to use it, you're acknowledging that you're on this voyage of discovery. What are we going to do? We don't know. We're going to test some theories and find out the best way. We're going to work together to do it. So here's our improvement cycle, or for people trained in standard DMAIC, you can see DMAIC sitting within that. And as you can see, it's underpinned by Plan, Do, Study, Act going on constantly throughout the whole process. When we train people up to be green belts, we spend quite a bit of time on this first phase, the select priorities phase. And if you've either not been trained in green belt, or it's been quite a while since you were trained in green belt, I really do recommend you get back in touch with us and get involved with a green belt course again, because this is the area that most people skip or miss, and they don't understand quite how important it is. And if I generate a list of standard project problems that we see time and time again, challenges around scope, what am I actually looking to change? What have I got the authority to change? I don't have enough time to do it. Yes, but we've got to get it done. The gaps in the leadership, missing sponsorship, missing championship, missing ownership. The need for resources. Can I get the project team released to me? The cross-functional dependencies. The root cause has gone into another area of the business. And when things go wrong, have we got that ability to get the governance structures to work and support us straight away? All 6 of those very common project problems are addressed directly in a properly set up select priorities phase. And I would even go so far as to say about 1 in every 3, 1 in every 4 green belts that I train who goes on to actually try and implement their training, I will normally, after 2 or 3 weeks, maybe maximum a couple of months, will be saying to them, you need to go back and recontract your project. You've skipped the select priorities phase, or you've missed key elements of it. So yes, I do strongly recommend, if any of this is not familiar to you and you're not aware of some of the tools and so on available in the select priorities section, then please do have a look at some of the ways that we can help you with green belt training. Rich, I don't know if you wanted to comment on that at all.
Yeah, I'll share a link later on actually, because we've had a couple of questions about refreshers in last month's PMI Live, and one of the things we've done recently is redeveloped our white belt, yellow belt, and green belt into an on-demand format, which people wasn't the primary intended purpose, are using as refreshers. So later on, folks, I'll share you a link to that if anyone wants to have a look. And as an attendee to PMI Live, we'd be very happy to chat through many options.
Fantastic. Thank you. So if you find yourself struggling with your project, first of all, go and check this. Did I rush this select priorities? But I'm not going to go through all of those tools today, as I say, because we've got those covered elsewhere. I'm going to move on with, as I say, the personal journey. So the personal journey, the next stage is for us to accept there is a problem. It's not if, but when things will start going off track. Even the very, very simplest project I ever ran, it took me 3 months to get through the select priorities phase, and we were finished within 1 week. But it didn't mean we didn't have a few challenges along the way. Yeah, it just happened to be relatively easy to overcome them. And now I want to start talking about the issues that we have, these built-in constructs that are built into our design, these cognitive biases, they're called. And there's been a lot of work, starting with Daniel Kahneman, and then a lot of the Thinking Fast and Slow stuff, Robert Cialdini, Persuasion, lots and lots of really interesting work coming out recently over the last 10, 15 years around these cognitive biases. And I just want to go through some of the critical ones for us as people trying to manage projects and improvement work. So here's the first 5. It's quite a long list, so bear with me. Confirmation bias, in simpler terms, that's the one where we only look for the things that fit with what we want to believe. The curse of social media. Everybody only gets what they like to see. and we end up with more and more breakdown in society on the back of it, etc., etc. Cognitive dissonance. If I've got 2 conflicting pieces of information, I tend to reject the one I don't like, even if it's the more valuable one. The ostrich effect. Well, quite simply, sticking our head in the sand, refusing to acknowledge the issue is there in the first place. Normalcy bias. Slightly more interesting one here. People underestimate the possibility of a disaster. So because I haven't seen something happen before, it won't happen in the future. Maybe not a big issue for some projects, but for some projects could be a very, very large issue. Sunk cost fallacy. This is well known by people in the project world. When to pull the plug. Yeah. Just because I've already spent 10 million on this project, does another million make sense? Yeah. No,
probably one of the toughest.
Yeah. Now, the good news is this one is the least likely, going back to the Jack Gibb hamburger model, because it's only about 5% of projects that failed because they were doing the wrong thing. So it's not the most likely one, but it can get in the way of people allowing the project to change direction within the project. Well, I've already explained to the group management that this is the way we're going, and you want to go another way. Yeah, but that's what the data is telling us. We need to go another way. There's a variation on the sunk cost fallacy. So that's a very quick introduction to the 5. Rich will in a moment be giving you access to some summaries of these for reference purposes that we're going to hopefully you'll be able to take advantage of. But here's 5 more. Dunning-Kruger effect. The less capable we are in an area, the more likely we are to overestimate our ability. Yep. The 18-year-old just learned to drive. The insurance costs are there for a reason. Yeah. Self-service bias. When things go right, it's down to what we did. When things go wrong, it's down to what others did wrong. Very, very interesting problem. All of these are blocks to learning. Status quo bias. Well, let's just keep going. It's a variation of what leads to the sunk cost fallacy. Anchoring bias. So we started off, we thought that we're going to get done by June, So we've just start making more and more decisions based on finish by June, regardless of whether it does anything useful. These kinds of things. So please, please, please avoid introducing arbitrary targets into your projects. We're going to reduce waste by 72%. No, you're going to reduce it by as much as you can. Don't introduce arbitrary targets. It's only unhelpful. And finally, optimism bias, which is the one that I've already mentioned right at the beginning. But in addition to these cognitive biases, so remember, these are all hardwired into us. But in addition to that, we've got two further effects, and this is right down to who we are as people. This is more in the space of Maslow and the context of our psychological well-being and safety. We can also avoid problems because of fear of reprisal. What if we get blamed for not having done things right, or nobody likes to be the giver of bad news, and so on. Yeah. And likewise, if it seemed to have failed, then that'll damage me and my ego. So these are not cognitive biases as such, but very, very powerful psychological stimuli that can seriously interfere with our ability to make the best possible choices. I'll come on to in a moment how we're planning to use these, but what I'd like to take away from this list just for now is this thing here, is if these are baked into us, what's it doing to our decision making? Yeah. How many opportunities for us to make poor decisions does this generate? It's, in fact, I would go so far as to say it's astonishing we ever make a good decision, but of course we do, because we have knowledge and experience, and that knowledge and experience can offset these. So, Rich, if that's okay, in a moment, I'm going to ask Neil to open up the poll, and specifically on this poll, I'm only looking at the top 10, the cognitive biases. What I'd like people to do is select as many as they want, between none all the way up to selecting all 10. Which ones of these do you think you have caught yourself falling into? Which ones of these have you trapped yourself with in the past? Rich, was there any chance of giving some summaries of them in case people can't remember what some of them are?
There's an explanation of these I've just added to the Q&A. I've started a discussion in there. If you click on that and click see more, you can see an explanation of each one with a description next to each one, running 1 to 10. And that's available in the Q&A now. If you just click the Q&A button and then see more, and you can just have a quick look through those. So, Sean, we're going to launch the poll in a second. We're going to give people just a few moments to read through.
Yes, probably maybe need 3 or 4 minutes. Yeah.
Cool. So whilst they're doing that, Sean, just repeat the question. What are you asking them here?
Right. So I'm asking people to look through all 10 and say, which ones do you find yourself vulnerable to? So just take a moment of self-reflection. Which ones do you get hit by?
Okay. And as mentioned, the descriptions are in the Q&A. So Neil, if you want to put the poll on there, that'd be fantastic, and then people can respond as they go and start selecting. And what you will see is that you're able to select as many or as few. Is that right? As many or as few as you think you find yourself subject to. Right word, Sean?
Yeah. You've caught yourself out. You know what? I underestimated how long that was going to take, or something like that. Or I thought I could do this, but actually I'm stuck.
Yeah. Great. So as you're glancing through those, just tick the checkbox in the poll that's on the screen. And when you're ready, hit submit. Oh, people are in already. Excellent.
Good.
So Sean, what again, the same question as I asked in the last poll, what are you trying to get a sense of here?
I've got two objectives here, Rich. One of which is just because there's a huge amount of data and information here. I just want to give people a chance to reflect on the content, but at their own speed and time. Sure. Because it's so fundamental to understand how much these things can get in the way of us responding to projects successfully. So just really, it's a pause to think. And the second thing, I'm going to keep as a secret.
Oh, wow. Secrets. Excellent. Hamburgers and secrets. Excellent. Okay, we'll just give you another 60 seconds or so, folks, if that's all right. And there's a lot to read through there.
Yeah.
Particularly conscious that if English is not your first language, this might be a tricky one. Again, ask any clarifications if you have any. If you have finished, the results are in the chat. You can see those already for those. So just whilst people are taking the rest of the time to answer, I've got a question come in specifically on one item here. Sean, is it the case that people suffering the Kruger effect won't be self-aware?
Yeah, that's fundamental to it. In fact, there's been a TED talk very recently on this. And there's a lovely irony of it, of course, because who is it who attends TED Talks? It's the people who are likely to be more aware of their own limitations, and it's hence why they're studying TED Talks. Yeah, the Dunning-Kruger effect is a really, really interesting problem because it's there's no arguing with them because of course the less they know, the more they're just relying on faith. And it's a very, very tricky thing. And unfortunately, the only thing that can deal with Dunning-Kruger effect over time is increased knowledge and experience. And not everybody's open to adapting their mental models, as we'll discuss in a moment.
Fantastic. Yeah. So bearing in mind, I know how much content you've got, and we've got 20 minutes remaining, Sean. Yep. So we've had responses in, a split, except the Dunning-Kruger effect, which has come out very low. The others have multiple responses against them. Yep. Ostrich effect, which of course is interesting when we're answering this about ourselves, of course.
Yes, indeed.
Hardly surprising, I suspect. So tell us your secret, Sean.
I'll now reveal the big secret. The technically correct answer to this poll is everybody should have ticked every box.
Okay, why is that?
Because we're all human beings, and these things are hardwired into us.
Know.
As far as I know, yes. I don't. ChatGPT might have signed up for the webinar. I don't know. But we even know ChatGPT is also subject to things like ostrich effect. It doesn't know what it doesn't know. It's also subject to self-serving bias. It presents things in the way that it believes is best presented, and so on. Optimism bias. It believes everything it says must be true, and so on. It tries to balance that with some other comment. So actually, even some of the new AI tools that are coming out are suffering because the people who designed the coding, of course, are human beings.
Yeah.
So it's a really, really interesting thing. Now, the thing is this, let me, before I just upset everybody and they'll just flee, not all of us are equally at risk of all of them, okay? Because some of us have learned how to manage these issues. And we have managed to recognize it. And if we go back to Robert Cialdini's it is Daniel Kahneman's Thinking Fast and Slow. He talks about the econs. And he said about 5% of the population are what are called econs. And the reason they're called econs is because they have learned enough about themselves as people to be able to overcome or mitigate these biases and therefore continue to make rational decisions rather than emotional decisions that they believe to be rational afterwards. So whilst it's true we're all subject to them, we're not all equally likely to be impacted by them, and we're also not all equally likely to be impacted by them all to the same degree.
Okay.
Yeah? And that's about and again, you can look at personalities. So one of the big five personality theory, one of the key elements of it is openness to experience. People who are open to experience are much less likely to experience the ostrich effect. We have people with, yeah, absolutely. So there's people who've got very high in conscientiousness. They're much more likely to go and check their facts before they go and flame on social media at somebody or some such thing. So we can see that we're not equally vulnerable to them, but we are all equally subject to them. Yeah. So Thank you very much, everybody, for doing that, and I really appreciate your input. And it is quite interesting that many of them, the confirmation bias, normalcy bias, optimism bias, sunk cost fallacies, people were recognizing that even though we're advanced, experienced professionals, we can still trip ourselves up with these.
Yeah, and a great comment just came in there, Sean, saying if you follow the mantra of stay curious, it can help negate some of these issues.
Absolutely agree. And by the way, there's growing evidence of a piece of research that I first did back in 1993, but has now been validated that it also protects you against the ravages of dementia. So it's also good for later life as well. So it's a big win. So brief definitions, they're there on the screen just to help people remember what they are for the future.
Yep.
Plan, do, study, act. This is the magic. This is and this is the heart of why Plan, do, study, act is so important in all the work we do. So I'm going to go now to the concept of single loop and double loop learning. Every time we make a decision, the only way we can make a decision is based on the mental models in our head. That then has an impact onto the real world, and then we get some feedback, information feedback. And if we're in single loop learning, then we just keep making, if we keep our mental model the same, we will keep making decisions the same. Let's look at double loop learning and how it works with PDSA. Same start point, but we're now going to add in a critical additional conscious component, a rational choice. We're going to go into slow thinking mode and say, whilst making the decision, I will also make a prediction about how my decision is going to affect the world. We can then let it loose on the real world and look for that feedback. And we deliberately extract that feedback in the form of forecast versus actual to evaluate its value and the validity of the theory. From that, we can constantly update our mental models as well as trying to update the real world. And this is exactly why Plan, Do, Study, Act exists. All the way back in the days of Shewhart, when he invented the Shewhart cycle, which was at that point only 3 phases, now it's the 4 phases, Plan, Do, Study, Act. This is why, before people knew about thinking fast and slow and cognitive biases and all those kind of things, Shewhart and Deming understood we have biases that we have to outwork if we're going to get ourselves to make the best possible decisions. So remember, projects don't go wrong suddenly. They don't go from green to red. Well, they might do, but on the whole, they drift off course. One decision at a time, one meeting at a time, one problem at a time. And we therefore need to be constantly in that PDSA mode saying, oh, is today going as I expected it would? And then we can protect ourselves. Because it comes down to this. Again, this will be a familiar slide to many of you. Our outcomes are based on the systems and processes we run. Those are designed and operated by the decisions we take. Back to the model before, our thinking theories are what drive those decisions. Our mental models are there, aren't they? And those are driven by our unconscious processes, which are in themselves driven by our attitudes and assumptions. So we need to add in that PDSA so that we can update our mindset. As we update our mindset, we'll be able to make better and better decisions and therefore have better and better systems and processes, including the process of managing the change. So this is hopefully making the PDSA clearer and clearer for people. Please, please, please do just trust the process. Yeah, it is the antidote to most of the reasons our projects go off track. We're hiding from the bad news. We don't want to let people know. It's so much easier to put green on the status report because then we have an easier time of it with the senior people. All of these things that are driven by those cognitive biases and emotional responses. If we just use PDSA, trust the process, it will get us through a lot of the challenges.
So how do we do that? By the look of things.
Sorry?
Through a very trippy forest by the look of things.
Yeah, I have to give all credit to the artwork goes to ChatGPT Dolly at the moment. Yeah, I'm no artist myself. Okay, So now I want to build our resilience. I've talked in the advertising around this about the concept of resilience. I want us to be able to be the best us we can be, because I've already said we're going to have problems. I've already said the importance of being ready for the problems and make predictions so we can spot the problem at the earliest possible point, not hide from it through cognitive bias. But then we need to push on through. We need to persevere through the problems. So I've just set this up as a simple 3-step recipe. Think of it like a pie. The base of the pie is developing your emotional intelligence. Now, many people these days are aware of the concept of emotional intelligence, but not necessarily everybody. So the basic concept of emotional intelligence, it's our ability to manage our emotions and to manage how we feel when interacting with other people. And ultimately, it also helps us to help other people to manage their emotions as well. And it splits into 2 sets of capabilities: internal facing, so how we manage ourselves, and external facing, how we work with others and their emotions. The internal facing capabilities break down into self-awareness and self-management. The fundamental here is self-awareness. If you're not aware of how you're feeling, you will not be aware of the fact that you've gone from rational decision maker into emotive responder. You will have gone from adult mode into child mode, or adult mode into critical parent mode, or some such thing. You will change mode and you won't spot it. And if you change mode and don't spot it, you're no longer in control of what happens next. So that is the fundamental. And if you're not very good at being emotionally self-aware, then this is absolutely the right place to start. And as I go through this model, I really recommend that everybody takes a note of which 1 or 2 of these you think you can develop best next. I will promise you this: nobody is perfect at all of these things I'm about to show you. Once we're aware of how we're feeling, we've got some choices we can take. How do we control it? Can we bottle up that anger and still behave in a professional adult way? Can we take the fact that things didn't go the way we wanted to and still be positive about the new course, even if it's going to take us an extra week or an extra month? Can we keep that focus on the goal, the prize, that we're heading towards perfection, that true north that we're trying to achieve? And despite how bad things go, can we keep it positive? Can we keep ourselves positive? These things are fundamental. If you're, especially in a leadership position, people will be evaluating your ability to do these things all the time. Yeah. And they will trust you to the extent to which you can do it. We can then move on to here, the external facing, empathy, how well we can understand how others are feeling. If we can understand how others are feeling, we can adapt our communication to be more effective, to help reduce the time it takes from going off board to on board, to improve their ability to get involved with things and so on. And we can scale this up to organizational level. How's that whole team feeling? How's the division feeling? How's our customer feeling? All of this sort of wider spread awareness. This allows us to fine tune our communications and our decision making, the better we get at it. And of course, we get into the really tough stuff at the end, the relationship piece. And all of these are things that you can go on many, many hours of courses on, even become a professional in. That's how tough some of these ones are. But influence. One of our more popular courses is managing and influencing stakeholders. Why? Because it's a really, really tough thing to do, and it gets in most of our way. So influence is a really, really high-end skill. Managing conflict, coaching and mentoring people, team working, inspirational leadership. All of these are about our ability to help other people to change the way they feel in the interests of the better result for all. Please notice I'm not suggesting any form of manipulation here. The definition of manipulation in this context is where you're doing it for your own benefit rather than the benefit of your organization and its customers. Okay, if you're doing it for yourself, then you're into the manipulation mode, and that's not ethical. Okay, so please look at that list. Which one of these should you develop first? And work from left to right, because they build upon each other. So Daniel Goleman, amazing. His books are a bit dry, a bit boring, but there's plenty of good stuff on the internet. But I do still recommend go back to his books if you've got that academic mindset to get the real detail. It's quite amazing, some of the stuff he's done.
And anyone that uses Blinkist, I can highly recommend it. One of my colleagues introduced me to it a few months ago. I used it earlier on when Sean mentioned these texts, and yeah, really useful summaries actually, without the dry and boring stuff. So thanks, Sean.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. But okay. 360 degree, ask the people around you which one, get them to pick one for you. You know, just show them that slide and go, which one of these do you think I could do best to improve on next? They won't be able to pick the bottom one probably, although they might, but you know, don't be frightened to ask. Okay, now it's into the main filling of the pie. Yeah, and I'm aware time is tight, so I'm going to be quite quick on this. Which person are you more like to be? Are you more likely to be the person who says, this is difficult, but worth it? Or are you going to say, no, it's too hard, let's quit? Are you more likely to say, you know, I prefer it if it went this way, but I can understand other ways exist? Or are you the sort of person who says, my way or the highway? Are you the sort of person who says, oh, what can we learn? It's gone completely up last week, but what can we learn from it? Or are you the person who says, right, not doing that again? Are you the person who says, what do we need to know, recognizing that we don't yet know everything we need to know? Or are you the person who falls into yet another cognitive bias, Wizziati, what you see is all there is? Again, there's an entire webinar I've done on this one. It's such a key topic. So, and you can see the last one. Are you the sort of person who says, what's the underlying root cause? Or are you the person whose first instinct is to find somebody to blame when things go wrong? All of these link to this concept, this psychological concept of resilience, which is really, really important in the field of HR, personal development, and so forth at the moment. Ultimately, it comes down to this. Can you keep going when times are tough? And you get better and better and better at keeping it going when times are tough, when you develop more and more strategies for coping with the tough stuff. And so please do your own research into resilience. If you're the sort of person who finds yourself faltering when things are tough, this is a really good area for you to research and investigate for yourself how you can do better with it and be stronger in yourself. I have some fairly typical quotes that I find myself using over and over and over with teams when I'm working with a team and things get going tough. One you've already heard me use. People are good people who come to work to do a good job. When do I use this? Anytime that people are blaming people, anytime people are blaming the management in particular, because they're good people too, trying to do a good job, and anytime where people are blaming the decisions that were made in the past. Yeah, they didn't deliberately make a bad decision. They just didn't apply PDSA to the decision, and so on. Yeah. So yeah, testing theories, absolutely critical. Another one is slightly paraphrased from Deming. Our processes are perfectly designed to give us the results we're currently getting. Yeah? So this gives us hope because it means that we can design better processes, which is just a task to do. And then we can get better results. And that includes our project management processes. And then the other one, every time people are getting, oh, it's too far away to get to perfect. Yeah, we might be aiming for perfect, but we only need to be 1% better than the competition for us to be the best there is. Yeah. So it's a journey, helping people understand that it's an exciting journey to go on, even if it does feel quite a long one. And then just to close up on this, I'm going to topping off my pie with a key lesson from my more successful agile colleagues that I've met and worked with over the years. There's lots of people using agile, but the ones that I've seen who are getting the best out of agile often make appear to that they often focus in on the importance of the team retrospective. I think it's a really interesting thing because it's the PDSA of the process by which we're managing the change. You know, the pace of software development or whatever it is we're doing. Because what the team retrospective allows you to do is create collaborative learning. You can cover for each other's blind spots. You can make sure that you've dedicated that time for study in terms of your own project processes. And of course, it allows you to be vulnerable together, which allows you to then strengthen your relationships within the team. So this is a really, really key steer I have to people. Build your emotional intelligence, one focus at a time. Build your resilience if you're finding yourself struggling at times when times get tough, and work together with your team, building in that retrospective time to do it. So just to summarize, before I hand back to you, Rich, Here's the key points. Dealing with human factors is probably the largest element. Our own poll suggested it's somewhere between 50 and 60% of project time. Improvement projects are voyages of discovery, so just be ready for the unexpected. Just be ready for it. Don't be upset by it. It may be bad, but it wasn't unexpected. We're hardwired to create many of the predictable problems we make. We drift off course because we're designed to drift off course. We use PDSA or testing theories in order to solve that and stay on track with it. Develop your emotional intelligence reduces the risk of you making things worse and harder than they need to be. Back to Taguchi on target minimum variation. And increasing your own resilience, your own team's resilience as well, will improve your success levels because you're more likely to push forward when you can, and you're more likely to recognize the sunk cost when it is a sunk cost. So thank you so much for your attention today. Really appreciate your involvement and comments along the way.
So Sean, Sean, just one piece of feedback I'd like to share as well from the comments that have been coming in. I think it's highly poignant here. There appears to be very little room in most organizations for the so-called soft stuff proactively, yet lots of time lost reactively, and human cost as well. Yeah, thank you for that comment. Resonates at all, which I think is why that slide where you saying move left to right, imagine the world if we all focused on things like that. So if you could just jump to the last slide for me, Sean, that'd be fantastic. Yes, so folks, as you know, we've got multiple podcast series, and Uncommon Sense is one of them. 15 minutes, tool or specific topic based. We've got several out in the recently released. You can find them on LinkedIn if you follow us, scan the QR code or search Process Management International. Best way to find out the latest and greatest from us. And on that subject, next week we have a huge announcement going out on Thursday, so please do stay tuned. If you're in our database, we'll send you it by email. But if you don't follow us on LinkedIn, do follow us on LinkedIn and see what we've got to chat about. We're really excited about that. As I say, huge announcement, so do keep your eyes peeled. And last slide, please, Sean. So finally, last PMI Live of the year will be on Friday the 15th, slightly earlier than normal in the month because of the Christmas break. So Friday the 15th of December, 3 p.m. I'll be joined by my colleagues Susanna Clark and Desmond Kelly, who will be discussing the Skills Development Challenge. Everything you've ever wanted to know. Here's your challenge, Suze. I can see you're watching. Everything you ever wanted to know about how to design your training programs, who should be trained, to what levels, what are the pitfalls, and how to avoid them. On that note, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. It's wonderful to have you with us. Look out for the Voice of a Customer survey. We will send you the recording next week if you have registered to attend, and it'll, of course, be available in our Knowledge Hub, pmi.co.uk. Click the top, Knowledge Hub. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Have great weekends. Cheers, all.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.